I've babysat a lot of kids before, but nothing has ever come close to what happened last night. It started like any normal gig. The parents, Mr. and Mrs. Lively, were a quiet couple who lived in a house way too big for just the three of them. Their daughter, Sophie, was 7. Sweet kid, or so I thought. "We'll be home late," Mrs. Lively told me as she pulled on her coat. "Sophie's already had dinner, just put her to bed by 9. I nodded. Easy enough. Sophie was already sitting on the floor, drawing with crayons. She looked up at me and smiled, except it didn't look right. Too wide, too many teeth. I blinked, and her smile was normal again. "Want to see my pictures?" she asked. "Sure," I said, sitting down beside her. She handed me a drawing. It was disturbing. A black figure with long arms and white, empty eyes stood next to a smaller stick figure. A girl. Sophie. "Who's that?" I asked, pointing at the black thing. She giggled. "That's my other mommy. She comes when my real mommy leaves." A chill ran down my spine. I laughed nervously. Creepy, but, your real mommy is coming back later, so no worries. Sophie just smiled and kept drawing. As the night went on, weird things started happening. I'd hear footsteps upstairs when I knew Sophie was still in the living room. The baby monitor, which was weird because Sophie wasn't a baby, kept picking up static, then whispers. Then, around 8:30, Sophie looked up from her drawing and said, "She's here." My stomach dropped. "Who?" She pointed to the hallway. I turned my head slowly. Nothing was there, but the air felt wrong. Heavy. "Sophie, it's bedtime," I said, forcing a smile. She didn't argue, just got up and walked upstairs. I followed, tucking her into bed, making sure she was comfortable. As I turned off the light, she whispered, "She likes you." I left the room quickly, my skin crawling. Downstairs, I tried to distract myself with my phone. I was scrolling mindlessly when I heard it. A soft giggle. I looked at the baby monitor screen. Sophie was sitting up in bed, facing the corner. "Sophie?" I called, my voice shaky. She didn't respond. Then, on the screen, something moved. A tall, black figure stepped out of the shadows. My blood ran cold. It was the thing from her drawing. Long arms, hollow white eyes. It crouched beside Sophie's bed, stroking her hair. And then, it turned its head toward the camera. I swear to God, it smiled at me. The screen went black. I bolted up the stairs and threw open Sophie's door. She was alone. Sleeping peacefully, the closet door creaked. I didn't check it. I didn't want to know. I stayed on the couch, lights on, until the Livelies got home. Mrs. Lively thanked me and handed me cash. As I was leaving, Sophie appeared at the top of the stairs, smiling her too wide smile. "See you next time," she said. "I'm never going back."
Babysitting is usually easy money, but this night still haunts me. The Callaways lived in an old Victorian house at the edge of town. When I arrived, Mrs. Callaway looked exhausted. "She's already asleep," she said, handing me the baby monitor. "Just don't go into her room. She sleepwalks sometimes, but it's best if you don't interfere." Weird rule, but I nodded. They left, and I settled in. An hour passed. Then the baby monitor crackled. Rustling. A faint giggle. I checked the screen. The crib was empty. I sat up, heart pounding. The camera caught a blur of movement, tiny feet shuffling across the floor. Then the monitor cut to static. I crept upstairs, every step slow and deliberate. The nursery door was open. Inside, the crib was still empty. Then I saw her. A small figure stood in the corner, facing the wall. "Emma," I whispered. Her head snapped toward me, her face hidden by tangled hair. A long, ragged breath. Then she laughed. A slow, knowing laugh, like she had been expecting me. I reached for the light, and the closet door slammed shut behind me. I bolted. Back downstairs, I fumbled with my phone, my hands shaking. Then, a thump. The baby monitor flickered back on. The camera was pointed at the crib again, but now, Emma was inside it. She stared into the camera, eyes wide, unblinking, smiling. I didn't babysit for the Callaways again. But a week later, I looked up their address online. There were no records of a child ever living there.
I've babysat a lot of kids, but last night was different. The parents, Mr. and Mrs. Hale, seemed normal enough. Their baby, Lily, was already asleep when I arrived. She shouldn't wake up, Mrs. Hale said, but if she does, don't pick her up. Just use the monitor and call us. Weird request, but I nodded. Easy money. For the first hour, everything was fine. I watched TV, scrolled my phone, then the baby monitor crackled. A rustling sound. I checked the screen. Lily was sitting up in her crib, but something was off. Her head tilted strangely, her limbs stiff. Then, the screen flickered. She wasn't alone. A dark shape loomed behind her, its fingers curling over the crib's railing. I shot up from the couch, heart racing. The screen flickered again. Lily was alone, lying down. Had I imagined it? I crept upstairs. The nursery door was slightly open. Inside, Lily was still, silent. Then, the crib creaked. I stepped closer, my breath hitched. Lily's tiny body twitched unnaturally. Her head jerked to the side, too fast, too sharp, and then she grinned. Not a baby's grin, too wide, too knowing. "You're not supposed to pick me up," she whispered. My vision blurred with fear. Something moved under the crib. A scratching sound, slow and deliberate. I ran. I locked myself in the bathroom, shaking. The monitor screen was in my hand, but Lily wasn't on it anymore. Just darkness. Then, a soft knock at the door. "Pick me up," the voice said. I didn't move, didn't breathe. When the Hales got home, I practically shoved past them. Mrs. Hale called after me, her voice too calm. "You didn't pick her up, did you?" I never answered, and I'm never going back.